But I would say really over the past, 5 years, the amount of investment that's been flowing into the employee experience, even at outsourced companies, has really risen, right? I mean, I think a lot of companies want to work with partners that value their employees, right? And we have a rule at OP360 that we don't want to work with an organization if they don't feel as passionate about their consumers, their customers, as we do about our own employees, right? So
Right.
our employees are, if they're not, engaged, happy, satisfied to work at OP360, they're not going to perform well for our clients. And we're only as good as the last interaction, the last, call that our employees take on behalf of our customers.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Your Customer, Your Success. My guest today is Josh Nutter, Vice President of Business Development with OP360. With over a decade of experience in business development and go-to-market strategy, Josh has been instrumental in scaling outsourced teams for startups while guiding established organizations in retail, fintech, and technology to maximize the value of outsourcing. Josh's expertise spans customer experience and back office operations, helping companies to build high-performing global teams. Josh tells me he and his teams are committed to optimizing business operations and keeping people at the heart of service delivery. And we are going to hold you to that one, Josh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate you having me on the show, and excited to get into it with you.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting conversation. I've been following your company for about a year now. It's an interesting place, and I wanted to bring this to my audience. Why don't we start with you telling us about the mission and purpose behind OP360 and how that aligns with your background and your personal approach to customer experience?
Sure, absolutely. OP360, we are a global business process outsourcing company, BPO company. We are really continuously raising the bar for world-class customer experience, by combining a couple elements: incredible people, technology, and really some thought leadership with several decades of experience from our leadership team at OP360. I'm really a maximizer at heart, and so I look for opportunities to improve or enhance, and find opportunities to make something better in every thing that I do. And so, really, it's been a great career trajectory for about 10 years, starting at Hewlett Packard across two BPO companies. I've been able to help U.S.-based companies primarily, build global teams to really deliver on their customer promises. And so it's just been a very rewarding career. I get to help U.S. companies, but also, give opportunities to people all over the globe.
So let me ask you something. We've talked a lot on this podcast about the state of customer experience and CX,
Yeah.
and a lot of the metrics are pretty low and sinking, and those scores aren't going in the right direction, and customer effort scores are going up. Tell us a little bit about what are you guys doing about it? How can you help?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one reason that's happening is because everybody's expectations are just getting higher, right? As a
True.
consumer, we
Yeah.
now compare it to, I don't know if you want to compare it to Amazon, but everybody's, expectations have risen. And I think that's part of why you see this drop happening. Really, what we do is we help take specific functions, whether it is customer support, whether it does happen to be some back office type processes that are specific to your industry. We help build those really fully independent teams, but they operate as an extension of your in-house teams. And so what it allows you to do is potentially elevate some of your in-house teams that happen to be in the US and really elevate the tasks that they're doing, or really handling some of the complex interactions. And then we are acting just as an extension of your team, but we're doing that. We're recruiting, we're training, and we're managing the team to an outcome, from really proven destinations, from an outsourcing perspective, like the Philippines, like Colombia, as some examples.
So, sometimes when people hear outsourcing, they might not have the most positive impression of what that can do for an organization.
Sure.
In your role, what are the biggest misconceptions that prospective clients have about what you do and how you can help?
Yeah, great question, Gary. I think outsourcing has been somewhat of a dirty word over the years, but I would say really over the past 5 years, the amount of investment that's been flowing into the employee experience, even at outsourced companies, has really risen. Right? I mean, I think a lot of companies want to work with partners that value their employees, right? And we have a rule at OP360 that we don't want to work with an organization if they don't feel as passionate about their consumers, their customers, as we do about our own employees, right? So
Right.
our employees are, if they're not, engaged, happy, satisfied to work at OP360, they're not going to perform well for our clients. And we're only as good as the last interaction, the last, call that our employees take on behalf of our customers. So it's a really big opportunity to make sure that our employees are engaged, and we drive everything around our company strategy around that, and it's been paying off. I would say, in addition to that, outsourcing is just not about cost savings, right? There's an ability to move quicker. There's an ability to raise consumer service levels, customer service levels, in CX when you can resource it correctly. And so we're just part of that equation. A lot of our clients have potentially, tier two, tier three in the U.S. And we're providing some of those teams in Colombia, the Philippines, potentially multilingual 24/7 operations. So there's a lot of ways that we're able to kind of solve our customer challenges.
So you're in a bunch of different markets. So that takes, I'd assume, a heck of a lot of training effort to get your agents up to speed and to be able to support those businesses in different industries. So talk to us a little bit. How the heck do you do that? And
Sure.
how do you keep, now again, this right from your website. Tell me if this number is not wrong. You boast an attrition rate of less than 4%. So
Absolutely.
how the heck do you pull that off?
Yeah, no, it's incredible. So really, we have a complete managed service offering. So what that means is we're recruiting talent, we're training it, and then we're managing it to an SLA or outcome. And it really starts with that calibration with every client. We are not, taking their need and putting it in our machine. We really build every team specific to our clients' needs, right? So it's,
Oh,
hey, what is the job profile for this work type, right? What does success look like in that line of business, right? Then we're taking that job description, we're going to market, we're finding experience in the market, right? A lot of times you can find experienced talent of customer support, even industry expertise on the healthcare side. We've been successful in finding really specialized work types in these locations. Then it's about training, right? We have our own internal training team, but we want to partner with our clients' training teams and really act as an extension of those teams. We want to be independent when and if we do have attrition. We want to be able to train and backfill, those agents with our own training team. That's one of the benefits of outsourcing is you're not responsible for attrition. That's on our dime. We have to backfill. And so we want to remain, autonomous in terms of how we deliver training, but it's really important to make sure that, our trainers are certified by our clients as able to understand the culture, the core values of the customer, and then be able to correctly train those individuals both on the culture, the soft skills, and the product knowledge.
that's incredible because I've always, I don't have a ton of experience. I have a very, very small set of experience working in a contact center environment, and I've always wondered how you pull this off and do it well, right? Because we all know there are experiences that you have with other providers that they don't go well, right?
Sure.
And so you kind of get that foro, that fear of reaching out. And so I kind of want to get into more how you're adapting and pulling this off. And no, unfortunately, no conversation is complete without using the magic AI word. We've talked about AI on this podcast a number of times, but to me, now the last episode that we talked about AI is talking about the hype, how AI is a little bit overhyped. Here's where I think is the value of the technology. And we had Sean Albertson on to talk about just this, how to implement the use of technology and AI in a contact center environment to help the agents be better. And so, can you
Absolutely.
talk to us a little bit about how you're doing that, so we get some really kind of ground level analysis and feedback and examples of that?
Absolutely. So really we approach it in kind of two categories. I would say we have strategic partnerships with multiple, AI technologies. And if you go to any of these CX or customer experience conferences, I mean, I would say over 50% of the floor is, some form of .ai at the end of it, right? So it's
Right.
everywhere. And what we try to do is really narrow that wide open ocean of partners and try to distill it down into here's a couple that we think meet, really fit the bill in this category. But we're also very sensitive to, we don't want to be, really driving the AI investment that is dealing directly with your consumers, right? I think that's a decision that our customers should make to really control their interactions with the end consumer. And so we're focusing on our side of the equation. So that is everything from how can we recruit better talent and find a better match, right? If we get 1,000 job applications, how can we really find the 50 people that are going to do the best on your program? Then it's about training, right? Instead of training in a live environment, I think we're all familiar with that nesting phase or on the job training. We've partnered with an organization, and it allows us to do training in a sandbox environment using very realistic scenarios and interactions, but you're not training in a live environment. So we've actually seen about a 30% increase in ramp to proficiency based on that training based scenarios. And then, how can we manage performance better, right? So is it 100% QA and using some QA tools to manage performance? Potentially, performance manage people out where needed, apply more coaching, and really allow our leaders at our organization to effectively manage the team, but also give our clients the confidence that we're doing everything we can to get the team to the desired outcome.
Nice. You hit on metrics. That was my next question. So let's dive a little deeper into metrics, if you don't mind. What
Sure.
other metrics are you using to manage your client base and your customer success?
Yeah. So again, we act as an extension of our clients. We don't want to duplicate anything that they already have reporting on, but we do need some core information because we are managing the team to an outcome. So typically, our agreements, we are signing up for mutually agreed upon SLAs or KPIs. We want to make sure that
Hmm.
they're reasonable. We don't understand your business out of the gate, and so sometimes there's a break-in period of, hey, we think the expectation is here. We think we can exceed that, and so we usually measure something like a quality metric, some sort of quality metric. I think there's NPS, CSAT. Every organization has their own targets,
Hmm.
and so we sign up for those targets. Then it's some sort of productivity measure, right? How many tickets per hour, how many service level, et cetera, that we're signing up to commit to, and that obviously there's some other departments that flow into that. So we have a full workforce management team that are helping plan capacity and resourcing to meet some of these service level targets, et cetera. And those are really kind of the two primary buckets that we're pulling from. But usually there's I would say 3 to 5 type of KPIs that we are agreeing to in our client contracts in order to sign up for and exceed.
Yeah, and that's certainly something I'm familiar with because that's exactly what I used to do for a living. So it's interesting to hear it, but to kind of tie this into something that I'm curious about from my background. Now,
Sure.
I've worked with many marketing and sales team, and I've worked with operations team, and my job is always to bring the whole delivery together for my customers. And often you see a little bit of a lack of communication between sales and operations and that trade-off in the onboarding. So, tell me a little bit about how you handle that to ensure, because I can see uh,
Yeah.
this type of situation blowing up big time if you don't have that communication between sales, client-focused people, and the actual operations team. I just, I've lived it for so many years and I've seen what miscommunications could do. So, how do you approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. So here at OP360, we really want to make sure that our clients feel like they know they can reach out to somebody. And I personally want, I'm a big believer in kind of personal accountability for what I'm signing up for our organization to deliver and the outcomes of that. And so, as a salesperson, I actually stay on an account once I build a relationship and we are building the dedicated team. I stay on for the first year, so I'm not going anywhere. I want to make sure that what we deliver on
Mhm.
comes to fruition. You also get assigned a client services manager at OP360, and so I think the traditional word was one throat to choke. That's probably not the best way to describe that,
Oh
but
no.
one account manager that
That's
manages the relationship. And then lastly, operations, right? Operations is the core of what we do, and so we encourage our clients to have a direct interaction, a direct relationship with operations. We never want to feel like they're on an island, and so we welcome that, and our clients communicate with our operations teams directly through multiple types of challenges, or multiple types of communication platforms.
That yeah, so that yeah, and it was my throat that was out there to choke for 20 or 30 years. So uh but seriously, that is so important because most of the models I've worked with is you do have to have an open line of communication between operations teams and clients and the client manager. It's called different things at different places.
Sure.
Could be a customer success manager, what have you. They're the one making sure that that communication is established and you're not overwhelming them, right, with too many people. I've had that with organizations where there's too many operations people
Yep.
to 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 make their way around, so you have to navigate the organization for the client. But that's really interesting stuff. So let's talking about some actual success stories. Can you walk me through an example of a success story or something like where you took a situation and turned it around. A client was really struggling, and then your services were there to kind of turn the situation to positive territory.
Absolutely. A couple of kind of places that we focus on that we've found a lot of opportunity are really some niches that you may not think immediately look that outsourcing is a solution for, but some places like legal, we've found really a niche in the legal space, and needing some resourcing there. The other example is healthcare. We've really found our niche in healthcare, and we see a lot of opportunity there. In legal, we work with a large law firm. It started as a 10 FTE pilot. They needed some additional resources around a specific queue. And with a lot of our clients, once they see really the organization from an implementation process, kind of walking our clients through starting a relationship with OP360, they immediately see the value, right? And so it immediately scaled. Today, we support about 28 different lines of business for this law firm. It crosses, over into things like shared services, like an IT help desk, but honestly, really following each case through the process, and really having these dedicated teams to support each part of that case. And so that's been a tremendous success. It's scaled to over 500 FTEs, and a really big story for us. The other example I'd give is in healthcare. I think if you've called your healthcare provider, it's sometimes challenging to get a hold of them, and so we really see a very simple equation. If we can help improve the patient experience, if we can help relieve some of the providers, some of the doctors and front office teams, they're just stressed. And then if we can help take costs out of the healthcare system, it's really a win-win-win situation for everybody. And so we support a large multi-location clinic in the Northeast, across about 60 offices, and they decided to centralize their patient engagement function. And so we've had tremendous success in building that team out of the Philippines for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Of course, I'm coughing as you're saying that.
Oh,
So
good.
sorry about that. But yeah, we noticed the same thing. We have a tremendous doctor's facility and practice we go to, but they lost a lot of that responsiveness, obviously, during the pandemic. And people,
Sure.
my wife is always on the Facebook page and people complaining about this, that, and the other thing. And they're
Yeah.
phenomenal. But we noticed just the same thing. It was so hard to get them and get through and get the appointment scheduled. And it can be very frustrating when you have a sick kid. Um,
Exactly.
we're not around. So that's pretty interesting because I wouldn't think of it in that vein, right? I mean, my brain always goes to large financial services
Sure.
companies. You call into, I'm trying to buy my mutual fund, and I can't, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my brain goes to that. So that's interesting stuff. Um, one thing we haven't talked about, feedback. How do you deal with customer feedback, listening posts, things like that, surveys, things, that's always in the forefront of people's minds in the CX world, which sounds like we're combining a lot of kind of customer success and CX, which is great music to my ears because I think that's what I do.
Sure.
Um, what listening posts are out there? Because you don't want to over survey, you don't want to rely on the metrics too much. But how do you guys picture that?
Yeah, in most of our client relationships, we work really out of their systems and tools. About 95% from a ticketing system, from a CRM, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel there. So we're typically mirroring what that organization has decided to how they decided to survey and those tools. And so, really, once we get those results, we want to absolutely act on them. We try to divide and kind of approach it from a what is a controllable with potentially a frontline agent versus what isn't non-controllable, which is maybe like the company policy about refunds. Nothing that we would have been able to do could change that outcome, and so we try to divide those survey results between those two categories, and then we're really drilling in on the root cause of that. Do we need to go back and reinforce some training? Is it potentially we need to up level the profile for this specific work type? And we're having those conversations in full transparency with our client partners. But that's really where we drill in and want to apply some coaching for the things that we can control in every interaction.
So yeah, how do you feel the responsiveness is to surveys? Are you getting the responsiveness? Is it dwindling? I just feel like sometimes folks are
Yeah.
over surveyed,
Yeah.
and I think when you're in the B2B world, you might be more motivated to respond. But you know what you get in the B2C world, you get kind of the ones and the fives out
Yep.
there, rather than the people in the middle is the feedback that you really need.
Yep. I would agree. I think we see kind of the extremes, right? They're just not, potentially their issue is not resolved from a company policy perspective, and they want to make that known. And so we absolutely get off the wall comments of not satisfied from a policy perspective a lot of times, all the way to Jose really helped me out with this issue, and when they mention that agent name, that's a real a real winner in terms of an interaction, and I think that agent went above and beyond in that specific interaction. The other thing I want to mention, in our business, it's there's a lot of customers, right? Our direct customers are companies that are using us for outsourced customer support or operations, and so we actually survey our own clients in an ENPS score, and so we survey them at least twice a year. Some of our clients we survey more, but that's to get a real pulse on our client base, to really make sure that we're delivering in everything that we've promised to, from actual operational performance to bringing them new ideas, fresh ideas around process and technology, and then lastly, from a relationship perspective, are they getting the right amount of support from OP360?
Yeah, interesting stuff. You don't want to overdo it, but you need that feedback. And to me, the challenging thing is getting the two. I call it 2 through 4. it's
Yep.
it's a bar in fixed income management. There's a barbell portfolio. To me, I call it the barbell. You get those extremes, and you really need to get those 2s, 3s, and 4s out there, and that feedback from the clients that aren't giving you the feedback. And that's why you have the client managers, I'm sure, but you need to be sure you take that feedback from those client managers and incorporate that as well. Okay, we're going to move to our segments. It's time for my favorite segment, Does It Hold Water? This is where I ask my guest to be our resident expert witness for the day. I'm going to read a quote from a thought leader or a perspective out in the industry. We're going to see if our expert guest, our expert witness, thinks this thought holds water or not, has some holes in it. So you ready for yours, Josh?
I'm ready.
I went out, I took a couple of quotes, kind of put them together, but I got this one quote. I'm paraphrasing just a hair, but it basically says traditional call centers are dinosaurs. AI driven service will replace a substantial portion of outsourced agents in under 5 years.
That's a bold prediction. Yeah, just without knowing this question before, I mean, Gary, I think the AI is absolutely going to make an impact in CX, right? I hope it's for the benefit. I hope it can handle some, you know, some interactions completely. I believe that we're in a space with how fast it's moving that it is absolutely going to take some volume, right? And I think it's really a declaration to BPOs and service providers that we're going to have to invest in our people. We're going to have to invest in looking at what work types add value from us providing. So I think it's just going to elevate everything, right? If AI is going to handle more tier one interactions, then we need to be able to handle those tier two, right? And it really elevates the whole food cycle, or the whole CX chain across the industry, in order of what we'll be able to handle. I also have another prediction, Gary, if you don't mind me diving into this.
Do it.
I think AI is making an impact, and when you go to these conferences that I talked about, you see it everywhere on the enterprise side. I don't think everybody's accounting for, in a couple years when AI gets in the hands of consumers, right? I think there's a bar of expectation that everybody, expects CX to be at. And if an organization is not willing to invest in that, I think there will be third-party tools that will basically raise the bar for the
Mhm.
consumer, and really act as an intermediary between the consumer and the end enterprise, support queue. And so I could see a world where potentially AI is talking to AI, and it's going to be escalated to a human at the end of the day. We might end up at square one from the beginning. So my guess is as good as anybody's. I don't claim to have any insider knowledge, but it's an exciting space to watch. I personally like keeping up with some of the AI developments and LLM, kind of the LLM race. So it's absolutely interesting. It's moving quicker than I think I've ever seen anything move. But I still think the answer at the end of the day is AI plus humans is really going to be the winning combination for brands.
Yeah, and my guest Chris Hood put it best. Now he says there's a 7-year gap out there between perceptions and where we're at. Um, but he says basically people first, technology last, AI maybe. So that's his perspective on it. I think that human factor, you cannot undervalue it. I think it's being undervalued tremendously right now with this. But just for our people who are not in the business, you mentioned tier one and tier two. Real quick, what's the difference between
Yeah,
tier one,
I
tier
would
two?
just categorize it. I mean, every brand probably buckets it differently, but tier one is just your more simple. Where's my order? I need some information about my flight. Right? It's just those simple interactions. Whereas, and I think AI can reference a database and provide that with no problem. I think it's where it's hey, my flight was delayed. I need a new one, but I
Right.
want this routing. When it gets complex, a tier two interaction is how I would define that. I think that's where you need that human touch.
Exactly, and that's why I brought it up because that's for me. That's where it's at, right? When I'm calling, I need something complicated that I've tried all the self help me out, right? I need a human being
Yep.
who has a brain and can reason. So AI cannot, no matter what people are telling you about it.
Yeah, and I would say, if you do offer AI, right? I mean, some unsolicited advice for brands, right? If you do offer AI, I'm in your camp, Gary. If I'm reaching out, I've already gone through the complete knowledge base, right?
Right.
I think maybe because we're from the industry, we know the process to follow. But I think if you offer AI, just be transparent about it, and then don't lock out consumers. I reached out to an airline the other day, and they did not allow me to get from their AI chatbot to a human, a live agent. They just ended the chat, and that just destroys any customer trust that you have, because you haven't allowed that consumer to get to a live agent. So be transparent, and then allow them a path to a live agent, in that flow.
Yeah, and make it easy is the other
Yeah.
thing because a lot of times I've been the same. I've been the cycle of doom, I call it, or you call in and you can't. I want to talk to a human, please,
Yeah.
and you can't get it because it's well, what do you want to talk about today so that I can help you further? What do you want to talk about? And you can't. I've had to lie to get a sales agent. I want sales. I want to buy more product, baby. Get and then you
they'll
get
they'll
somebody
write
real
you
quick.
straight to it. Yeah.
That's right. So you have to game the system a little bit, but yeah, to me that's the frustrating thing. But give people a choice is what we've been preaching on this show. So if you have a choice, that's one thing. But when you have no choice, that's just going to drive people crazy. We've talked about the checkout lines in various stores, right? Or even fast food place. Sometimes you don't have a choice now. And yeah, well, I use the checkout in the grocery, yeah, or CVS, sure, but I've had mixed success with both, as we already talked about. So interesting stuff. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we're going to move to Chip Shots. Chip Shots is our section where we do short form questions, a little more personal but professional in nature. And it gives our guests a chance to talk a little bit what's inspired them and what they've thought about, and it really helps our audience. So, the first question we usually ask on Chip Shots, I got to keep it rolling. We've got a great book list going, Josh. I mean, it's it's great. I keep saying I got to put a post out there. I got to do a blog post and give this book list out there. What is one book that has influenced you personally or professionally that you can recommend to the audience?
Great question, Gary. I'm gonna throw you for a loop if you don't mind. I am really more of a podcast and honestly YouTube guy these days. I do keep up with some of the AI news, some of the economic stuff that's going on in the world. A lot of this is driven by technology, and so just because it's moving so fast, my preferred medium has really been podcasts and YouTube. So really, just to give you one recommendation for everybody
Mhm.
listening, is the All In podcast. It's for industry veterans that come from really the VC and Silicon Valley world, and so they just provide another perspective on some of the AI investments, some of the economic investments. Dare I say, some political input as well. That's it's
Uh-oh.
very even, and just a great podcast. But it makes me feel more educated from a macro perspective of everything that's happening kind of these days.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. We will never be upset with building an audience for podcast or podcasting. So that is great stuff, and that sounds interesting. I'm going to check that out because uh, that's definitely something I'm looking into right now, trying to get a good podcast on that type of content. So thank you for that. All right, I
Absolutely.
got one for you that I think is going to be pretty a good one for you. If you could spend one day shadowing a leader or professional in any industry, who would it be, and what would you hope to learn?
Interesting. Again, I'm going to go a little bit probably off the beaten path. Alex Hermosi, at first he kind of feels like one of these online gurus, right? But I think he goes a lot deeper, right? So he has, if you've heard the name, not heard the name, he really has a bunch of social media content out there. He's written a couple books, like the $100 million offer. So I
Hmm.
guess that could be another book recommendation there.
There you go.
Um, but he really has some really practical advice for people, whether they're stuck in their corporate, kind of corporate journey, up, or
Hmm.
if they're stuck in an entrepreneurial perspective. He really gives some really grounded advice. He basically built a gym consulting business, has now rolled that into acquisition.com, and basically helps buy businesses and really improve them. And so it's a really interesting individual, and I would learn a lot from just kind of, I think, shadowing him on a day-to-day basis.
And I am not familiar with him at all. What was the name one more time?
Alex Hormozy.
Harmozy. Okay, I
Yep.
don't know him at all. So that's a new one for me. Interesting.
Check
Thank
him
you.
out.
I will absolutely. All right, so let's go with the routine. One habit or routine you've cultivated that you believe contributes to your personal or professional success.
Yeah, I think I would say really over my life in sales, it's really the power of cold outreach. I think in a world where you're connected to everybody, or I think what 5 degrees from everybody in the world. I think there's a lot of value to be had in just reaching out to people. It doesn't have to be purely for you know a sales driven conversation, but I think especially in the CX world, right? It's a small industry. People say that you're kind of in it, right? Once
Hmm.
once you fall into it, you're kind of in it for usually a long period of time. And so, just the power of outreach, and then the second, kind of layer to that is you build some incredible relationships over the years that I am very privileged to have. And so I just say the power of cold outreach, whether it's email, whether it's phone, whether it's LinkedIn, it's just, something that we have that didn't exist just 30 years ago. And so I would say don't be afraid to reach out to anybody you really want to have that conversation with. Can't promise the outcome, but at least you're doing your part, and I think good things will come from that.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Thank you. Because let me tell you, I've been doing that a lot more myself, but just doing the show or what I've been doing for the past year, the outreach, people coming to me has been phenomenal. So I can't be happier with the way that this show and the community that is the CX world has come to me as well. So that's pretty neat stuff. And I didn't always get that, on the investment side of the world. So it's kind of interesting. It's a much more dynamic kind of industry.
You're a big deal now. You're a
I
big
am not
deal.
a big deal. No, I'm not. I don't know if I'm any deal. We'll see. Well, we're trying to be some sort of deal, but it's just being out there on LinkedIn, like you said,
Yeah,
and
you're putting
doing
yourself
things.
out there.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you get some great feedback. So, all right, one more. What is the most unexpected or unconventional lesson you've learned in your career that's proven to be invaluable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think something that I've dealt with in my career in brief moments of time, right? Sometimes it feels, I'm a father of two kids, and sometimes the saying goes that the days are long, but the years go by quickly, right? Everyone says it goes by way too fast, right? But when you're in it, right, it feels like forever. And so, good and bad ways. Sometimes depends on the day and how the kid's acting, but I would say, like, when you're in those tough professional moments, whether it's the boss that you're dealing with, or just a stint of kind of not closing deals, whatever that might be, right? It's just that struggle is part of the story that you can tell one day, right? If you're in a valley, right, and when you get to that mountain, you'll be able to look back and say, I used to be down there, but now I made it to the top, right? So it's just reframing the I'm stuck right now to this is what I'll get to brag about later of where I was, right? And I think that really has resonated with me, during moments when things maybe aren't going, all your way at times. So a little bit of maybe a different perspective, but I hope that helps.
That is a great one. That is a great piece of leadership advice. I've been there on both sides of that. I've been, questioning what the hell is going on, and you look back and you can help other people. And what a good one! Really good job, Josh. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Gary.
Well, thank you for being here. And we got to wrap it up, but appreciate you being here. You've been a great guest. But why don't you, before we go, tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Nutter. I'm probably one of a couple Josh Nutters on LinkedIn, but feel free to look me up. Work at OP360. Josh at OP360. If you want to reach out about anything, doesn't have to be about outsourcing specifically, but would love to just interact with more professionals in the CX space, and I hope I can be a resource to anyone in the CX space.
Great, thank you. Yeah, they're good. Now you got that cold outreach out there. They're going to reach out to you. So
There we go.
please do, and please reach out to me. But I want to thank you for watching this episode of Your Customer Your Success. We'll be We'll be back real soon with more from the world of client experience, customer success, and more. Thank you for joining us, and bye for now. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you found something insightful that will enhance your experiences and drive your success. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and share your thoughts to help us improve the show. Don't forget to head on over to marracxhub.com for more ways to connect with me and learn more about experience management. Until next time, I'm Gary Marra, working hard for your customer and your success.